Hello guys, and welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be learning about story. How do you create a good story? Well, before you start your story, you need to make sure you're not throwing everything in the player's face at one time. So make sure that your story is gradual, that you learn gradually about the story. There's a tendency for some people to throw too much at the player all at once, to give a full description, tell a life story, and reveal the innermost thoughts of the character as soon as he or she is introduced. Now, that's not a good thing, and now, in most Zelda games, the story is very gradual. For example, in Breath of the Wild, you start off asleep knowing nothing. So the player and the main character start off knowing the same thing, and that is nothing. Alright, so this is almost in every single Zelda game. You start off either asleep or you just don't know anything. Alright, so it's very important that you don't throw everything at your player all at once. Now, another thing that makes a really, really good story is heartbreaking events. So, why does this make a good story? Well, you want the player to have sympathy for the characters and to want to help them. So, in every Zelda game, you have a heartbreaking event at the very beginning of the game. So, for example, in Ocarina of Time, you have the Deku Tree dying. Wind Waker, you're leaving your island. And in Skyward Sword, Zelda is captured. Alright, so these are many, many examples of different events that happen in the game to make you want to help. Right? Now, one essential thing to having a good game with a good story is good character development and interaction. Alright, so what do I mean by that? Well, good character development and interaction, it isn't the story itself, but it helps introduce your story. And it helps make your character and your player feel like they're in the game, right? So, to start off, you need to know your character's history. Not just your main character, but every character, every NPC you interact with. Know their history. You need to know your character's history, because if you don't, they're one-dimensional characters, and they don't seem real, and they're very flat. And a good example of a character that has many dimensions to them, has a history, is Rivali. Alright, so he's very prideful, he's arrogant, but at the same time he's nice.
Let's not forget the fact that I am the most skilled archer of all the retail.
Next, you want to tap into the power of a grudge. Now, why would you want to make a character that everyone hates? Well, to start off, it makes your player feel like they have something in common with the other characters of your world. They hate the same person. Right? And then also, it makes your characters want to help. Same thing with the heartbreaking events. You don't want this character that you absolutely hate to do anything to anyone else, right? Now, a good example of this is Zant from Twilight Princess. He's someone that I personally hated in the game, right? And you had fun killing him. How do you use this in your game? So you know the basic things of what not to do and what to do while making your story, and you've now made your story. You've planned your game out. Now you're at the point where you need to incorporate your story in your game, right? So to start off, how do you actually incorporate it? Well, to start off, you want good dialogue, alright? So every Zelda game has great dialogue. So you can see you have Ocarina of Time's dialogue, Wind Waker's dialogue, and the newest Breath of the Wild's dialogue. They're all very good, and it teaches you the story, alright? To not rely on words to tell the story. Now, I just said dialogue is good, but you don't want to rely on that completely. You want to rely on your level design, right? So I talked about this in the last video, so go ahead and go to the last video and watch that if you don't know exactly what you should be doing to create your level. Alright, now, next, a good way to also introduce story is side quests with characters. Alright, so a good example of this is in Breath of the Wild. You have a lot of different side quests that you can do to learn about the story. Alright? Now, a good story starts with a good character. And to have a good character, the animation should show the emotions of the character. So just to have a good model and good textures and good, just to have a good model and good textures isn't necessarily enough. You need to have good animation, and not only good animation, but you need animation that shows the players or the characters' emotions, their personality. Now, this scene, this memory from Breath of the Wild, is a very good example of good animation and good personality in the animation. Now, it shows Zelda being very angry. Now, that's a good thing. Now, how do you actually do this in your game, right? So, how do you actually animate a character? Well, we're going to be talking about that in the next couple of weeks. We're going to be going over just basic animation and then also very good animation. But that's not for this tutorial. So, let's go ahead and summarize what we did. So, to start off, we learned how to create a good story. So, before you come up with your story and before you incorporate it into your game, you need to make sure you're not throwing everything in the player at once. Next, you want some heartbreaking events in your story. And you also want good character development and interaction in your story. When you're planning your story out, make good character development and interaction. Now, we also learned about what good character development was. So, and how to do it. So, to start off, obviously, you need to know your character's history, because you don't want them to be one-dimensional. You want to tap into the power of a grudge, right? So, those are the two main things on creating good character development. Now, how do we actually incorporate this into our game? That's what we went over next. And one way of incorporating this into your game is good dialogue. Now, you don't want too much of this, because mainly you want your good level design to rely on words to tell your story, right? So, again, go back to the other video. I published it last week. It's about level design. Card right up here if you want to go watch that. Now, next, you want in-depth side quests with your characters. Now, you don't want too many side quests, but you want enough, right? So you want to learn about the story through side quest. Now, a good story starts with a good character, right? So that's what we went over next. And for that, you need animation. Good animation that shows personality, right? Now, that is what we went over. So, thank you guys for watching this study video. Again, I have a tiny bit of a cold, so I am sorry. Hopefully it'll be better by next week. Again, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next Friday.